I earned a father, and I'm so lucky.
Welcome, friends, to Heart with Michael, a program for the bereaved community. Our purpose is to empower our community with resources, support, and advocacy information. In this season, we're taking a longer view of grief. Can we find peace and healing? Is there a way to move on despite our losses? We're lucky to have a very interesting guest, Hanny Sidis, who will talk with us about being a professional working with bereaved people, but she will also share her own grief journey since the recent loss of her father. Today's program is The Mind-Body Connection in Healing. Hanny Sidis is from Haifa, Israel. Hanny is an occupational, dance, and mind and body therapist. She works with people through movement to connect the body and mind in order to work through a variety of issues such as relationships, emotions, trust, and trauma. Hanny guides them to have a better understanding of themselves and to connect to their inner self so they can make better choices for themselves. Hanny has recently added Acro balance to her treatments as a therapeutic tool, bringing a better understanding of parental-child needs such as communication, trust, and emotional connection to each other. In the future, she would like to open her own studio, guiding groups of families for wider effect. Hanny, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here.
You have a wide variety of experiences that have brought you to where you are today. So tell us about how you became interested in working with bereaved people.
Well, as a therapist, I believe that everyone lost someone or something that was really important to them during life. We all dealing with loss. When I became a therapist, I understand that in order to get a wider perspective of ourselves, we need to connect the body and the mind. And it's not just talking or understanding or thinking. We need to really connect ourselves to the process. And that's how we get a wider understanding about ourselves. So walking with people who had lost someone has just brought me to the wider understanding that we need to deal with it with a wider perspective. And then we can really choose and be empowered by our inner selves. I think even children experience loss, and I'm working with foster care children, and they lost their parents. It's a great trauma, and they deal with it every day, and they have to find their way to manage in life and to keep on going and to find other ways to be strong and empowered. So it's a great thing for me.
Is it fair to say that foster children lose their parents many times because they keep moving from place to place? Every time they maybe begin to connect to somebody, they're ripped away again?
Yeah, I think it's really hard for them to connect to and to be really be in touch with other people because they're so afraid about being abandoned. So the process of working with them is to really make them feel safe and secure, that they can be in a relationship, which is really hard for them. It's a long process of trust. But once you do that, and they feel trust and they feel that they are connected, they can really understand their story and they can open the trauma and they can really connect all the pieces. Because I think that the major thing about people or children dealing with grief and loss is that they have holes in their story. It's not connected. The trauma cuts part of the story. So they live in lives without knowing themselves, without knowing their story, because it was so hard to deal with it. So the soul the body, the mind, they can't deal with it. So they cut pieces of their story. But then when they grew up, it's really hard for them because they know that something missing, but it's so hard to connect to that or to deal with it. So in therapy, I help them to connect the dots, to connect the story, to make it a whole. And when we get closer and connect, they feel safe to do that, to open the story and start putting the pieces together.
You and I recently attended a conference on grief in Israel. And in your presentation, which we'll talk about later in the program, you spoke about your father who you recently lost. How has your own personal grief affected you as a therapist working with other people's grief?
I think ever since my father died, I understand things that I didn't understand before or I didn't know before. I knew about loss and I knew about death, but it has nothing to do with what I'm dealing now. It's so different. I know things that I haven't known before. So ever since my father died a few months ago, I can really understand how sometimes I don't know anything or I don't understand anything about the personal loss of someone.
That's an amazing place to begin as a therapist, don't you think?
Yes. I think it has something to do with modesty. So now I understand that I can connect with people through the understanding that I don't really know how it feels to lose someone that was really, really close to them. It's so private. It has something to do with them and the special connection that they had with the people that they loved. But so when I say that I don't understand a lot, I can say that I understand that it's really, really hard, that it's something that they deal with every day, that it's sometimes it comes in the wrong moments. Sometimes it's just overwhelm them. Sometimes they just want to cry, get into bed and never wake up. I understand that.
Aren't these things that are sort of also very common? I understand what you're saying, that everybody's grief is private, and that even though we've suffered our own grief, we can't understand what the other person is feeling, that every grief is personal. Yeah. But there are some things that are common. Like many of the people I've spoken to on this program tell me the same thing. For the first year or however long they say they couldn't get out of bed. People get hit with waves of grief. Suddenly they cry. Suddenly they don't cry. I think that's common to all of us. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, that you find it harder now to understand the grief, even though you've had your own.
It is really common. And we all dealing with some common ways of dealing with grief. But when I say that, I can say to someone, now tell me about your own loss. And then I can be there with you. Even that sometimes like a child once told me, a child who lost both his parents. He told me, you'll never understand what it is. I told him, you're right. But I know something. I know that it's really, really hard. And I know that it cuts you from the inside. And I know that you sometimes don't feel emotions that are so strong. We can deal with it together. We can be with that together.
Home Tonight Forever by the Baby Blue Sound Collective. I think what I love so much about this CD is that some of the songs were inspired by the patients.
Many listeners will understand many of the different songs and what they've been inspired by. Our new album will be available on iTunes, Amazon.com, Spotify.
I love the fact that the proceeds from this CD are actually going to help those with congenital heart defects.
Enjoy the music.
Home Tonight Forever.
Hi, my name is Jamie Alcroft, and I just published my new book, The Tin Man Diaries. It's an amazing story of my sudden change of heart as I went through a heart and liver transplant. I can think of no better way to read The Tin Man Diaries than to cuddle up in your favorite Hearts Unite the Globe sweatshirt and your favorite hot beverage, of course, in your Hearts Unite the Globe mug, both of which are available at the Hug Podcast Network online store, or visit heartsunitetheglobe.org.
You are listening to Heart to Heart with Michael. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on Michael's program, please email him at michael@hearttoheartwithmichael.com. Now, back to our program.
Honey, at the convention we attended in Eilat, you read a letter that you wrote to your father after he died. Can you tell us why you wrote that letter?
So after my father died, it was a sudden death.
Mm-hmm.
I was really shocked and full of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And just after a few days, after we finished the Shiva, the 7 days of grieving, I got this email about the convention in Eilat, dealing with their loss and grief. And I immediately knew that I'm going to do something in that convention. I'm going to come and give a lecture and a workshop in movement. So I figure out to myself, okay, so I have 6 months to understand what I'm going to do, to know what I'm going to do. I have 6 months to process this traumatic loss that I've been through. So during this month, I started to write a diary, and I wrote to my father. I wrote him almost every day, and I told him about myself and my life. And during this process, I understand that I'm doing something. I'm trying to understand what happened to us, what happened to me and my father in our special relationship that we had. In that letter, I really understood what happened to us as a family and what happened to both of us as a father and daughter. And it was a very important closure for me to really understand our life story. So I just got up to the stage and read it. And it had a great impact on me and on others.
I was very moved by it. It was a very personal letter, and you exposed yourself in front of a room full of strangers, which I think is difficult for anybody. But I want to turn this around. You're usually the therapist asking other people to expose themselves to you. Yeah. What was that like, being on the other side of that?
It was really, really hard. But it was a huge part of healing process for me. It was a present that I gave to myself. I needed to do it because I needed to find a meaning to all of that. My father was such a great man, and we had such a great connection between us. How come he's just gone? So I had to find out what just happened. I think it's a very unique and amazing story because I can share with you that over the first 20 years of my life, I had a father. He lived with us. He was a great man. but he was very close person, and he was very close with us, the children. He never exposed himself or talked about his feeling. And we didn't have a connection between us. Although he lived with us, we had a huge distance between us. I think it has something to do with his car accident that he been through when he was 3 years old.
Oh.
So his leg, part of his leg, cut up. And he told me once that ever since it happens, he decided not to cry and not to show emotions because his mother was crying a lot. So he had to be strong. So I think he grew up as in order to be strong, like I know today about children who suffer from trauma. In order to be strong and to survive, you need to cut up your emotions, put them aside, and not to show emotions. That's how he didn't know how to be a father, how to show love and warmth. Although he was a wonderful person, but he couldn't show that to us, the children.
Do you think that because he was injured as a child, that's why you work with children? Do you think that you're helping him in some way by working with others?
Definitely. I think I'm working with children in order to heal my inner child and my father. Definitely. Because the first 20 years of my life, I didn't really know my father.
You mentioned that writing this letter was a journey to find meaning.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to our listeners, how you found meaning through writing? Yeah. Did you feel like you were strengthening your connection with him by writing?
Yes, sure. Because by writing, I connected the pieces. I understand something that I didn't see before. So the first 20 years of my life, it was one thing. I had one father. And when I was 20, my parents got divorced and my father left the house. So after my father moved away, he realized how distant he was and how emotionally and physically we are apart and we are not connected. So he was determined to put our family together and to find a way to just to connect with us again and to be a father. It was very hard because I was 20 and but he did it. He just started to he went to his own therapy. He started to draw and he uh, he went to a journey by art therapy, and he found a new love. He got married to a wonderful woman, and they immediately connected the two families together. She loved us a lot, and we are still in touch with her. And he just waited for me to come. He said, "I'm here. I always be here. You can come whenever you want. It's okay if you're not coming, but I always be here. I'm your father. I want to reconnect with you." So he said that he's very sorry about our childhood. He said that he couldn't find strength and he was really not connected to himself and to emotions. He was very sorry about that. And he said, "I'll do everything to get you back." And he did. Slowly, year after year, he became the most important person of my life, in my life. I loved him more than anyone. And it was a great journey for me to understand that I have a father So writing that really helped me to understand and to put the story together. And it wasn't like that before. Now I really understand what we've been through and how he did it. And it took a lot of patience and strength, but he never gave up. And I earned a father, and I'm so lucky.
I was 5 hours old when I had my first surgery.
Wow.
The only advice I can really give someone like that is to be there for your family.
This is life, and you have two choices. You either live it or you sit in a corner and cry.
I am Anna Jaworski and the host of Heart to Heart with Anna. Join us on Tuesdays at noon Eastern Time on Spreaker or Blog Talk Radio. We'll cover topics of importance for the congenital heart defect community. Remember, my friends, you are not alone.
If you've enjoyed listening to this program, please visit our website, heartsunitetheglobe.org, and make a contribution. This program is a presentation of Hearts Unite the Globe and is part of the Hug Podcast Network. Hearts Unite the Globe is a nonprofit organization devoted to providing resources to the congenital heart defect community to educate, empower, and enrich the lives of our community members. If you would like access to free resources pertaining to the CHD community, please visit our website at congenitalheartdefects.com for information about CHD, hospitals that treat CHD survivors, summer camps for CHD families, and much, much more.
You are listening to Heart with Michael. If you have a question or comment that you would like addressed on our program, please send an email to Michael Lieben at michael@hearttoheartwithmichael.com. Now, back to Heart with Michael.
Letter writing is a mind-body connection that it starts in your head and it comes out in your hand, and there's that connection there. But I know that professionally, you've done some amazing things with the entire body to help with healing. So let's talk about Acro Balance and how this might help some of my listeners move on to a path towards healing.
About 4 years ago, I started practicing Acro Balance myself, and I immediately fell in love with this amazingly beautiful sport, because I think it's one of the only things that you have to do together. Acro Balance is a partner acrobatic. You have to find a balance over someone else's body. So you can't do that alone. You can't do it without someone who will be there for you. So during my practice, I learned a lot about trusting myself, trusting others, really feel free and connect to my body, and learn how to use it in order to communicate without words, just to know where to put my weight, how to balance myself. I think one of the most important things that I learned during my practice was to fall, to learn how to fall, and then to get up again and doing it again, doing the trick again. Learn how to trust myself that I can fall and stand and do it again. So I became an Acro Balance teacher, and after.
It's just, I have to, it's just too bad this is a podcast of audio only. The pictures are, first of all, they're terrifying. If I was your father, I would not let you do this.
He was so happy, actually. My father, he was so proud of me.
He was your father and I'm not.
Yeah.
Let me try to describe this for people who don't know what Acro Balance is. It's craziness. It's absolutely, it's like acrobats in the circus, okay? But these are normal people, regular people who just do these crazy, amazing things. Yeah. The photographs are, I hope they're on your website. The photographs are stunning and frightening and scary, and you know what? They exude trust. All right. Okay, if you're on top of somebody's shoulders or if he's holding you up by his hand,
Mm-hmm.
if you look up trust in a dictionary, that's the picture they put in the corner.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it gives me a lot. My father was really proud of me. He said it a lot, and he used to show my pictures to everyone.
How do you use that in a family therapy session? You don't
Mm-hmm.
have kids being held up in the air by their parents by one hand, but how do you use
Um,
that?
uh,
Maybe you do. I don't know.
well, it's yeah, I do not by one hand, but with two. So I decided to start Acro Balance as a therapeutic tool in the regular sessions in my clinic with parents and children. And it was amazing because you want to be a fly on the wall when you hear about children and parents hearing for the first time that I'm an acrobalance teacher and I want to teach them some acrobatic poses.
Oh gosh.
So children can say, "Oh, my mother is too weak; she can't hold me." And the mother say, "What? No, of course I'm strong." Or a child can say, my father will sure drop me," or "I fall," or "Do you want to kill me?" Um, or they say, "Oh, I can do that with my father, not with my mother." And the parents, they say too. They say, "What, acrobat? No, never. I'll never manage to hold him. You hold him." So it's a great journey that we're doing in the clinic, learning how to trust, learning how to walk with our body, balance ourselves on our parents. Families always say that ever since they started to do acro balance, the relationship in the home changed dramatically
Of course.
because the children learn to trust them when they having a crisis or a hard moment. So a mother told me that once her boy just started crying and she couldn't comfort him, she told him, "Do you remember in Hanny's room we did acrobalance and you trusted me? Now you can trust me that I can comfort you. I can help you. Just give me a chance." And she said it was a huge moment for them. It was really dramatic.
It sounds so simple. I'm sure it's not, but it's just beautiful that the
Yes.
parents learn how to transfer that trust, that physical trust, into a psychological binding and trust that way. It's beautiful. I need to ask you one more question because we
Mm-hmm.
are approaching the end.
Okay.
We've learned over the years that after post-traumatic stress, which everybody knows about, can sometimes
Mm-hmm.
come post-traumatic growth and has
Yeah.
a way of changing us and encourages us to do things that we would not ordinarily do. My humble example is this podcast. I never would have done it had I not lost my daughter. Your father's passing. What has that spurred you on for? Where's your post-traumatic growth coming?
I realized that this is my time to open my own studio, which will be big enough and will have a lot of space in order to work with groups. I knew that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open my own studio and I'm going to call that after my father's name. That will be my way to keep him with me,
Mm.
to keep his huge heart, to do something good for others, and to spread the way of helping others, children, adults, adolescents, and to reach more people. This is my dream, and I'm sure I'm going to do that.
Would you agree that by opening up a studio in his name, you are taking his journey of the last 20 years, his journey
Mhm.
back to you, and continuing it forward with him, even though he's gone?
Yes, definitely. That's the whole idea. And I really want to work with families got like parents who got divorced, and to do Acro balance with the children, although the mother and the father got separated. I'm sure that with Acro balance and with movement, we can do things that help children to feel safe and secure with both parents, although they don't live together.
Hanny Sidis, thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
And that concludes this episode of Heart to Heart with Michael. I want to thank Hanny Sidis for sharing her thoughts on healing with us, and I hope her story has brought some hope to those who are listening, and I wish her much success with her plans for a clinic in her father's memory. Please join us at the beginning of the month for a brand new program. I'll talk with you soon, and until then, remember, moving forward is not moving away. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. We hope you have gained strength from listening to our program. Heart to Heart with Michael can be heard every Thursday at noon Eastern Time. We'll talk again next time when we'll share more stories.